What if I told you that the weakest prince of the holiest family in the kingdom awakens the most forbidden power that could shake the entire world? A power so dark, so terrifying, that even his own family wants him dead. Today, we re-diving into one of the most insane Manhwa stories where a holy prince, blessed by the gods, awakens necromancer abilities. This is the story of divine light meeting absolute darkness. And trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Before we start, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to Manga Reaper, where stories never die. Now, let's get into it. In the heart of the Aurelia Kingdom, bathed in celestial light, stands the grand Cathedral of Light. Its golden spires pierce the heavens, a testament to the gods' favor. For over 500 years, this sacred place has been the home of the Luminous family, a holy bloodline blessed by the god of light himself. Each member is born with divine powers, the ability to heal the sick, purify evil, and command holy magic that scours darkness from the world. Today, the cathedral echoes with the cheers of nobles and commoners alike. A grand family gathering is underway, a showcase of the Luminous family's unparalleled might. We see the first prince, Cloud the Luminous, standing tall and proud. He raises his hands, and a shimmering golden barrier materializes, so vast it could shield an entire city from attack. The crowd roars its approval, his divine aura shining with an almost blinding intensity. Next, the second princess, the ethereal Seraphina Luminous, steps forward. With a gentle touch and a soft prayer, she demonstrates her divine healing, a power so potent it can pull a soul back from the very brink of death. Her beauty and strength have earned her the adoration of the entire kingdom. Following her is the third prince, Marcus Luminous, the divine blade. He draws his sword, and with each swing, it sings a hymn of holy power, capable of cleaving through the strongest of demons. He is a celebrated hero, a warrior who has slain hundreds of monsters threatening their lands. But then, a sudden hush falls over the whole. The air grows heavy. A young man, barely 18, enters the cathedral. This is Ilian Luminous, the youngest son. Yet, as he walks, something is jarringly wrong. Unlike his siblings who radiate a brilliant, golden light, Ilian looks ordinary. There is no aura, no overwhelming presence, no hint of divinity. He is a shadow in a family of sons. The whispers start immediately, spreading through the crowd like a virus. Is that really a Luminous? One noble sneers to another. I heard he can't even cast a basic healing spell. What a disgrace to such a noble bloodline. The words are daggers, sharp and cruel. Alian keeps his head down, his gaze fixed on the marble floor as he makes his way to a secluded seat in the far corner of the hall. He doesn't need to look up to know. His own family doesn't acknowledge him. His father, Duke Aldrich Luminous, the patriarch of the family, refuses to even glance in his direction. His mother, the Duchess, turned away the moment he entered, her face a mask of disappointment. You see, in this world, every member of the Luminous family undergoes a sacred ceremony on their 15th birthday, the Divine Awakening. It is a ritual where the God of Light bestows upon them their holy powers. For 500 years, without fail, every single member has awakened incredible, world-changing abilities. Every single member, that is, except Leon. 3 years ago, the entire kingdom gathered for his awakening. The anticipation was electric. Priests chanted ancient prayers. The Archbishop himself conducted the ritual. Hopes were impossibly high, for Leon had been born under the blessed star, a celestial event that occurs only once a century, promising unparalleled power. But as the final prayer faded and the ritual concluded, there was nothing. No golden light, no divine blessing. Just an absolute, deafening silence. The Archbishop checked again and again, his face paling with disbelief. It was impossible. For the first time in the family's long and storied history, a Luminous had failed to awaken. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Leon's father was consumed by a cold fury. His mother wept 4 days, mourning the son she believed was cursed. His siblings, Claude Seraphina and Marcus, began to treat him as if he were invisible. a ghost haunting their perfect family portrait. The nobles, once eager to curry favor, now mocked him openly. Even the servants, who once bowed to him, began to treat him like garbage. For 3 long years, Elian lived as the family's greatest shame. He was moved from his lavish quarters to a small, cold room in the servants' wing, far from the main palace. He ate his meals alone. He trained alone. He existed alone, adrift in a sea of contempt and indifference. But here's the secret no one knew. Elian never gave up. He never surrendered to despair. Every single day, before the sun even kissed the horizon, he would sneak out to the deserted training grounds. While his family slept, he practiced swordsmanship until his hands were raw and bleeding. While they attended lavish banquets, he devoured ancient texts on magic theory, studying until he collapsed from sheer exhaustion. He pushed his body and mind to their absolute limits, desperately trying to forge strength where the gods had given him none. Because deep down, buried beneath the shame and the loneliness, a fire burned within Elian. He had a dream, a fierce, defiant dream. He wanted to prove every single one of them wrong. He wanted to show his family, to show the world, that he could be strong too, even without their holy powers. He would carve his own destiny with sweat and steel. He thought that path would be a long and arduous one. But today, everything is about to change. Something is stirring within him. Something that was never meant to be there. And soon, the entire kingdom, the gods themselves, will be forced to look at the powerless boy they cast aside. The witching hour had fallen over the luminous estate, blanketing the grand halls in a silent darkness. But in a small, forgotten room, a single candle flickered. Elian, the so-called failure prince, was hunched over a pile of ancient texts, his eyes straining in the dim light. He was searching, desperately, for a loophole in destiny, a forgotten spell, an alternative form of magic, anything that could make him useful to the family that looked upon him with nothing but disdain. Suddenly, a sound pricked his ears. Footsteps, soft but hurried, and more than one. They were right outside his door. Before he could even process the threat, the door to his room exploded inward, torn from its hinges. 5 figures clad head to toe in black robes burst into the room. They were masked, their weapons already drawn, and a sinister, dark energy pulsed from their blades. This wasn't holy power. It was its antithesis. Shadow magic. Target acquired, one of the figures said, his voice a cold, flat monotony. The Failure Prince dies tonight. Elian's heart hammered against his ribs, but a strange calm settled over him. His body moved on instinct, leaping back from the initial rush. His hand closed around the familiar, worn grip of the training sword he kept beside his bed. 3 years. 3 years of brutal, thankless, secret training, all condensed into this single moment. The first assassin lunged, a blur of black cloth and gleaming steel. Elian didn't think. Reacted. He dodged, the assassin's blade slicing through the air where he'd been a second before. He twisted, using the man's own momentum against him, and brought his sword around in a swift, hard arc, striking the assassin squarely in the ribs. A grunt of pained surprise escaped the man's lips as he stumbled back, clutching his side. He can fight. Another assassin exclaimed, his voice laced with shock. The intel must have said he was helpless. It doesn't matter, the leader snapped. He has no powers. Overwhelm him. Kill him. And then they were on him. All 5 at once. It was a whirlwind of death. Elian fought with a desperate ferocity he didn't know he possessed. He was a dancer in a storm of blades, his training sword a blur as he parried, dodged, and countered. Every sword technique he had ever drilled into his muscles was put to the test. Against all odds, against trained killers wielding dark magic, the powerless prince was holding his own. He was proving he wasn't useless. But it was never going to be enough. He was 1 against 5. A sharp, searing pain exploded in his shoulder as one assassin's blade finally found its mark, slicing through muscle and sinew. Blood sprayed, hot and wet, before he could recover. A powerful kick slammed into his chest, sending him crashing into the stone wall. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs, and he slid to the floor, his head spinning. He tried to push himself up, to get back into the fight, but a shadow loomed over him. A glint of steel, a sharp, stabbing agony erupted in his side as a poisoned dagger was driven deep into his flesh. The pain was immediate and alkensuming. It wasn't a clean cut. It felt like liquid fire was being pumped directly into his veins, spreading through his body with horrifying speed. "This is what happens to failures," the lead assassin mocked, his voice dripping with contempt as he looked down at Elion's writhing form. "Even your own family wants you gone. Did you really think they'd let the holy bloodline be tainted by your worthless existence?" The physical pain vanished, replaced by a cold, crushing agony of the soul. Elion's eyes, wide with disbelief and horror, locked onto the masked figure. "My family ordered this." It choked out the words, tasting like ash. The assassin let out a short, cruel laugh. "The Duke himself paid us." "Your own father," he said to make it look like a random attack. "Don't worry, Prince of Nothing. Your death will be quickly forgotten. Betrayed." The word echoed in the ruins of his mind, not by an enemy, not by a stranger, but by his own blood. The people he had spent his entire life trying to please. The father whose approval he craved had signed his death warrant. Satisfied, the assassins turned and left him bleeding out on the cold stone floor. They didn't even bother to confirm the kill. The poison they used was legendary. The void serpent venom, a concoction that specifically dissolved holy energy, guaranteeing a swift and certain death within 5 minutes. There was no cure. Alian lay there, his vision blurring at the edges, the world fading to gray. A warm pool of his own blood spread out beneath him. His life flashed before his eyes, a montage of loneliness and futility. All those years of desperate training, all for nothing. All those lonely nights spent wishing, hoping, praying that tomorrow would finally be the day he was accepted. Tears of despair mixed with the blood trickling down his face. Is this... really the end? He whispered to the empty room, his voice barely a breath. The last of his strength gave out. His consciousness frayed, unraveling into a deep, endless black. But in that absolute void, something stirred, a voice. It echoed not in his ears, but in the core of his mind. It was ancient, vast, and imbued with a power that dwarfed anything he had ever known. "Do you wish to live?" It rumbled, a question that was also a challenge. Elion's body was a broken shell, but his spirit, his consciousness, screamed back with every fiber of its being. Yes. I want to live. I want to prove them wrong. I want to make them pay. The voice seemed pleased. "Do you wish for power?" Yes. His mind roared. Whatever it takes. I'll do anything. A low chuckle echoed in the void, a sound of ancient amusement. "Even if that power comes from darkness itself." I don't care. Elion's will was a blade of pure, desperate resolve. The light never helped me. Give me the strength to survive. Very well, the voice declared, the amusement shifting to a tone of profound proclamation. The god of light abandoned you, so I shall embrace you instead. From this moment forward, you are no longer blessed by the heavens. You are chosen by death itself. And in the darkness of his dying mind, a new, terrifying power began to bloom. Suddenly, Elion's eyes snapped open, but they weren't his usual blue. They glowed with an eerie, purple light that lit up the dark room. The poison coursing through his body began to react strangely. Instead of killing him, it started a transformation. The void serpent venom was designed to destroy holy energy, but Alian never had any to begin with. His body, free of that sacred power, was now the perfect vessel for something entirely different. Dark energy erupted from Elion's body like a violent storm. Purple and black flames engulfed him, but they didn't burn, they healed. His wounds stitched themselves shut. His broken bones snapped back into place. The blood that had pooled on the floor rose up, defying gravity, and flowed back into his veins. And then, it happened. A translucent blue screen shimmered into existence, right in front of his eyes. A system notification appeared. "Congratulations! You have awakened." A flood of information rushed into his mind. Class: Necromancer. Then another line appeared, one that would change everything. Rank: Legendary, it read, with a note beside it, 0.001% awakening rate. The screen filled with stats, skills, and abilities he never knew existed. His mind was flooded with knowledge about necromancy, the forbidden art of controlling death itself. Elian slowly, shakily, pushed himself up. He stood, staring at his hands. Dark, purple energy swirled around his fingers. He felt ... powerful. More powerful than he had ever imagined possible in his entire life. What is this? He muttered, his voice raw. The system promptly responded, its text clear and sharp in the dim light. You are now a necromancer, master of death, and controller of souls. Initial abilities unlocked. The system continued. 1. Raise dead. Revive corpses as undead servants. 2. Death touch. Drain life force from enemies. 3. Soul vision. See the death energy in all living things. And 4. Bone manipulation. Control skeletal structures. Elian couldn't believe it. After a lifetime of being powerless, he finally had power. But it wasn't the holy light of his family. It was its complete opposite. The very thing the holy families were sworn to destroy. The irony was almost laughable. Just then, he heard voices outside the door. His assassins, they were coming back to dispose of his body. Perfect timing. The door creaked open, and 5 masked figures walked in casually. Their movements relaxed, expecting to find a corpse. All right, let's wrap this up. And the lead assassin stopped mid-sentence. They all froze. There was Elian, standing in the middle of the room, perfectly healthy. His purple eyes glowed intensely in the darkness. The blood that had stained the floor was gone. The poisoned dagger lay harmlessly beside him. Impossible. ... Double quotes! The lead assassin gasped, his voice tight with disbelief. The void serpent venom should have killed you. It's never failed. Elian smiled, but it wasn't his usual gentle, weak smile. This one was cold. Dangerous. You're right, he said, his voice now steady and firm. It should have killed the old me, but I'm not that weak prince anymore. He raised a hand, and a pulse of dark energy radiated outwards. Let me show you what real power looks like. He activated his first skill, Raise Dead. The very ground beneath the assassins began to crack and splinter. Skeletal hands, dry and bony, burst through the floorboards, their fingers clamping around the assassin's ankles like iron traps. Panic erupted. The men tried to run, to pull free, but it was too late. With a loud crash, 3 complete skeletons emerged from the floor. Their bones glowed with an unsettling purple necromantic energy, and their empty eye sockets burned with ethereal flames. What kind of magic is this? One of the assassins screamed, his voice shrill with terror. This is impossible. Only dark sorcerers from the cursed lens can use necromancy. Elian let out a low, dark laugh. Guess I'm full of surprises with a simple dismissive gesture, he commanded his new skeleton warriors. Attack. They moved with an inhuman speed and precision that no living creature could match. Their bone weapons clashed against the assassin's steel blades in a chaotic shower of sparks. The fight was brutal and completely one-sided. The trained killers were no match for the tireless undead. One assassin, seeing his comrades fall, made a break for the door. But in a blur of motion, Elian appeared directly in his path. The new power had granted him enhanced speed. Where do you think you're going? Elian asked softly. He reached out and grabbed the assassin's face. Death touch, he whispered, activating his second skill. The man's skin immediately began to wither and shrivel. His life force was being drained away at an astonishing rate. He aged in seconds, his face contorting from a man of 30 to a decrepit 80-year-old, until he was nothing but a dried, desiccated corpse that collapsed onto the floor. The remaining assassins were paralyzed with fear. This wasn't the weak, powerless prince they were hired to kill. This was a monster. A demon. Please! Spare us! One of them begged, falling to his knees. We were just following orders. We'll tell you anything. Elian's glowing purple eyes narrowed. You said my father ordered this. Tell me everything. Trembling, the lead assassin spilled the entire plot. Duke Uldric, Elian's own father, wanted him dead before the upcoming holy tournament. It was a grand event where all the noble families showcased the power of their heirs. Having a powerless son, a dud, would bring immense humiliation to the prestigious luminous family in front of the entire kingdom. So, the Duke had hired these shadow assassins to stage a random attack. Elian's death would be mourned publicly, but celebrated privately. I see, Elian said, his voice quiet and void of all emotion. My own father wanted me dead just to save face in that moment. Something inside him didn't just break. It shuddered. It wasn't his spirit, but his last, desperate attachment to his family. All those years of trying to gain their approval, of enduring their scorn, all of it was a waste. They never saw him as a son, just a stain on their pristine reputation. Thank you for the information, Elian said coldly. The assassin looked up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. You said you'd spare us. Elian's cold smile returned. I lied. With a final wave of his hand, the skeleton warriors finished their job. The last of the assassins dropped lifelessly to the floor. But Elian wasn't done. He looked at the fresh corpses. He activated his raise dead skill again, this time on the assassin's bodies. A thick, purple energy engulfed them, and slowly they began to rise. Their eyes opened, no longer human, but glowing with the same necromantic power as his skeletons. They were no longer assassins. They were now undead servants, their wills bound completely to his. From now on, you serve me, Elian commanded. In perfect, synchronized unison, the 5 undead assassins knelt before him. Elian looked down at his hands again, feeling the dark, incredible power coursing through his veins. He should have felt guilty. He should have been horrified by what he had become, what he had done. But all he felt was ... relief, and a burning, exhilarating sense of freedom. Finally, after a lifetime of being helpless, he had the power to control his own destiny. The weak prince is dead, Elian declared to the silent, dark room, his voice echoing with newfound authority. And in his place rises someone who will never be stepped on again. He turned towards the window, looking out at the kingdom that had cast him aside. A new era was dawning, the era of the Necromancer. The first rays of dawn crept over the luminous estate, painting the sky in hues of gold and rose. Inside his chambers, Prince Elion stood amidst an eerie silence. Gone were the bodies of the shadow assassins. Gone was the crimson evidence of their failed attempt on his life. To the outside world, it was just another peaceful morning. But Elian knew the truth. His father, Duke Uldric, had tried to have him killed, and more importantly, Elion was not the powerless, forgotten prince. Everyone thought he was. He was a cold reality settled upon him. If he were to reveal his powers, he'd be signing his own death warrant. In this kingdom, necromancy was the ultimate heresy. The Holy Church and its fanatics would hunt him down without a second thought. He needed a plan, a way to survive, to grow stronger in the shadows. Just as despair began to creep in, a series of notifications appeared in his mind. A gift from the mysterious system that had awakened his powers. A new skill. Dual nature. The effect was perfect. The ability to switch between his holy appearance and his true necromancer form, with no mana cost. Elian focused, willing the dark, pulsating energy that had saved him to retreat deep within his soul. The unnatural, purple glow in his eyes faded, replaced by the original, unremarkable blue. The chilling aura of death that clung to him vanished completely. He looked in the mirror. He was once again the weak, ignored third prince. Time to play the long game, he whispered to his reflection, a faint, determined smile on his lips. He walked to the grand dining hall for breakfast, his steps calm and measured. His father, Duke Aldrich, was already there, flanked by his other children. As Eliane entered, the Duke's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. A flicker of disbelief he quickly masked. "Good morning, father," Eliane said, his voice even and polite as he took his usual seat at the far end of the long table. The Duke's jaw tightened. The assassins, the best in the kingdom, had failed. He couldn't question Eliane without revealing his own treachery. "Morning," the Duke grunted, his voice colder than the stone walls around them. Eliane ate his toast with a serene expression, savoring the silent, simmering confusion emanating from the head of the table. After breakfast, his eldest brother, Claude, cornered him in the hallway. "I'm surprised to see you, little brother," Claude said, his voice dripping with false concern. "I heard a bit of a commotion near your quarters last night. Is everything all right?" Claude was his father's favorite, ambitious and cruel. He was undoubtedly in on the plot. "Just a nightmare," Eliane replied smoothly, not missing a beat. "Nothing to worry about." Claude's eyes narrowed, searching for a lie, but Eliane's placid expression gave nothing away. He knew something was wrong. Bate Coldanti put his finger on it. The next few days passed in a familiar blur of solitude. Eliane continued his routine of training alone, studying alone, and being utterly ignored by his family. He was a ghost in his own home. But when night fell, the real work began. Under the cloak of darkness, Eliane would slip out to the abandoned graveyard on the edge of the estate. This forgotten patch of land became his sanctuary, his training ground. He began to experiment, testing the limits of his newfound abilities. He learned to pull on the threads of residual death energy, coaxing the long dead from their slumber. His first attempt resulted in a clattering pile of bones that barely managed to stand. But with each passing night, his control grew more refined. Skeletons rose at his command, their empty sockets glowing with faint purple light. He learned to reanimate fresher corpses, creating shambling zombies, slow but durable. He even managed to bind spectral echoes to his will, creating whispering, ethereal ghosts. The system rewarded his efforts. His raised dead skill leveled up. He unlocked new, terrifying abilities. Bone armor, which could sheath his body in a protective exoskeleton of hardened bone, and death chains, spectral chains that could ensnare and drain the life from his enemies. His power was growing at an astonishing rate. The system explained that unlike holy magic, which drew power from faith and blessings, necromancy fed on the understanding of death itself. Every corpse he raised, every soul he commanded, brought him closer to the fundamental nature of mortality, making him stronger. One moonless night, as he was practicing in the graveyard, he heard a sound that didn't belong to the soft sobs of a child. He followed the noise and found a young girl, no older than 10, kneeling before a fresh grave. She was crying, her small shoulders shaking. "Mr. Can you help my papa?" she asked, her voice trembling as she looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. "He died, protecting our village from bandits. Everyone says he's gone forever, but maybe magic can bring him back." Eliane's heart, which he thought had grown cold, ached with a sudden, sharp pain. He could bring her father back. With a mere thought, he could raise the man's corpse from the earth. But it wouldn't be her papa. It would be a soulless puppet, a hollow imitation animated by dark magic, bound to Eliane's will. It would be a monster. He knelt down beside her, his voice gentle. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "Some things even magic can't fix. Death is permanent. But your father was a hero. He's watching over you from a peaceful place. The best way to honor him is to live a good, happy life. Make him proud, okay?" The girl looked at him, her sobs subsiding into quiet hiccups. She nodded sadly, wiped her eyes, and slowly walked away. leaving Elian alone with his thoughts among the tombstones. That moment was a revelation. He wielded the power of death, a force feared and reviled by the world, but that didn't mean he had to become a monster. He didn't have to be the villain everyone expected a necromancer to be. He could use this power to protect the innocent, to fight the real evil that festered in his kingdom, the bandits, the corrupt nobles, even his own family. He could be the hero this world desperately needed, even if they would never understand him, even if they would always fear him. Standing under the pale moonlight, surrounded by his undead legion, Elian made a vow. "I'll be a necromancer with a holy heart," he declared to the silent night. "I will be the balance, light and darkness, combined in me." His path was set. A long, lonely road lay ahead, but for the first time, he saw a future filled not with despair, but with purpose. 2 weeks fly by in the blink of an eye. The day of the holy tournament arrives, the single biggest event in the entire kingdom. This isn't just a festival, it's a battleground for prestige, where noble families showcase the strength of their heirs. Winners don't just get a trophy, they gain political power, influence, and even marriage prospects with royalty. The massive Colosseum is buzzing with energy, packed with thousands of spectators from every corner of the continent. The air crackles with anticipation. Even the king himself is here, watching from the royal box. And then they arrive, the luminous family, in a grand carriage that seems to be blessed by the sun itself, bathed in golden light. Claude Serafina and Marcus step out, walking with pride, waving to the roaring crowds. Their holy auras are so potent they shine like brilliant stars, a testament to their family's power. But trailing behind them, almost like an afterthought, walks Elian. The crowd's cheers falter, dissolving into a sea of confused whispers. "Wait, is that the failure prince?" one person mutters. "What's he doing here?" asks another. "Probably just for show, to keep up appearances," Tay concluded. The truth is, Duke Aldrich never wanted to bring Elian. But after the failed assassination attempt, excluding his youngest son would just raise too many uncomfortable questions. So here, Elian is, with one simple instruction. Sit quietly and don't embarrass the family. But Elian, he has very different plans. The tournament kicks off with a dazzling display of power. There are holy magic demonstrations, where spells light up the arena like fireworks. There's divine combat, with knights clashing in a dance of steel and light. Healing challenges show off incredible restorative powers, and demon subjugation trials prove their worth against darkness. In every single category, the luminous siblings dominate. They are a force of nature, showing everyone exactly why their family is considered the strongest and most blessed in the land. Finally, the moment everyone has been waiting for arrives. The Dungeon Challenge. This is the final and most dangerous event. An artificial dungeon, a sprawling labyrinth filled with vicious monsters, has been created beneath the Colosseum. Noble teams must venture into its depths, battle their way through hordes of creatures, and retrieve a sacred treasure hidden at the very bottom. The risks are real. Every year, people die in this challenge. The teams are announced, and it's a lineup of the kingdom's finest. Team 1. First Prince Claude, leading 4 of the most elite holy knights. Team 2. Second Princess Serafina, accompanied by 4 powerful priestesses. And Team 3. Third Prince Marcus, with 4 valiant paladins at his side. All the heavy hitters, all the strongest fighters, strategically divided. And then, the announcer says something that sends a shockwave through the entire stadium. Due to an uneven number of participants, the youngest luminous prince, Elian, will form a solo team. The crowd erupts. The muttering turns into a roar of disbelief. Solo? Are they insane? That's a death sentence. But he doesn't even have powers. The Duke. He must really want him dead. Up in the VIP box, a faint, cruel smile touches Duke Aldrich's lips. This was his backup plan. If the assassins failed, the dungeon would finish the job. It was a perfect trap. If Elian refuses to enter, he'll be branded a coward and exiled in disgrace. Either way, The Duke wins. Alian stands alone at the dungeon entrance, a massive, dark cave leading deep underground. He can see the paths his siblings took, their teams having already disappeared into the shadows. Now, it's his turn. The announcer approaches him, his face a mix of pity and awkwardness. Prince Elian? You don't have to do this? No one would blame you if I'll enter. Elian cuts him off, his voice firm and unwavering. The announcer's eyes go wide. But you have no holy powers. You have no team. It's certain death. A mysterious smile plays on Elian's lips. We'll see about that. And with that he turns and walks into the gaping maw of the dungeon, all by himself. The entire crowd watches in stunned, breathless silence as the massive stone doors grind shut behind him with a deafening, final boom. Inside, the world is gone. It's pitch black, the air thick and humid with the smell of damp earth and something else. Something foul. The distant roars of monsters echo through the winding tunnels. Any normal person would be paralyzed with terror, but Elian is no longer normal. In the darkness, his eyes begin to change, shifting to a vibrant, glowing purple. A vortex of dark energy erupts around him, his true form activating. Finally, he mutters to himself, the sound swallowed by the cavernous space. Time to stop pretending. A transparent screen flickers into existence before his eyes, a notification from his system. It reads, "Dungeon detected. Rank a high danger." Another line appears, "Necromancer bonus. 300% power in death-filled areas." Then a warning, 847 monsters detected, and finally, a recommendation. Show them what true power looks like. A low laugh escapes Elian's lips. Oh, I plan to. He ventures deeper into the dungeon. It isn't long before he encounters his first welcoming party. A pack of 20 flame wolves. These creatures are massive, each the size of a horse, with fire licking at their matted fur. They surround him in a tight circle, growling, their burning eyes fixed on him, ready to tear him apart. Outside, in the sunlit Colosseum, the spectators are glued to the magic projection screens, which show a bird's-eye view of the events inside the dungeon. They see Elian, a lone figure, completely surrounded by a pack of fiery beasts. A collective gasp sweeps through the stands. They assume the end is near. Up in his books, Duke Uldric nods with grim satisfaction. It's done, he thinks. But then boom, an explosion of pure, dark energy erupts from Elian's body. The force is immense. The flame wolves are sent flying, their bodies slamming into the dungeon walls with sickening crunches. Before they can even begin to recover, Elian calmly raises a hand. He speaks a single command into the darkness. Raise dead. The very ground splits open. Skeletal hands burst through the dirt, followed by massive, bony forms. Undead wolves 3 times the size of the living ones rise from the earth. Their empty sockets glow with an eerie purple light. Without a moment's hesitation, they launch themselves at the stunned flame wolves with a savagery that is terrifying to behold. The spectators' jaws collectively drop. On the screens, a massacre is unfolding, but not the one they expected. What is that magic? Someone screams. It's dark magic. But how? Another cries out. Is that really the luminous prince? The projection screens show a scene of utter chaos. Elian stands perfectly still amidst the carnage, his undead army slaughtering the monsters with brutal efficiency. His purple eyes glow ominously in the flickering light of the dying flame wolves. The smile on his face is no longer weak or mysterious. It's confident, cold, and utterly terrifying. He looks nothing like the powerless, forgotten prince everyone thought they knew. Duke Uldric leaps to his feet, his face pale with shock. That's impossible, he shouts, his voice trembling. He had no powers just 2 weeks ago. This can't be, but the truth is undeniable, projected in high definition for the entire kingdom to see. Elion Luminous, the family's greatest shame, has awakened something ancient, something dark, something far beyond anyone's wildest imagination, and his grand performance has only just begun. In the shadowy depths of the dungeon, Elion was a one-man storm, carving a path of destruction through every level. But he wasn't just defeating monsters. He was recruiting them. Each slain creature rose again, its will bound to his, joining his ever-expanding undead army. A notification chimed in his mind. Level up. Label 15 becomes 16. A new skill unlocked. Army of Death. He could now command 100 undead at once. By the time he descended to the 3rd level, a terrifying legion of 50 servants marched behind him. Skeletal warriors with rusted blades, hulking zombie brutes, and swift ghost scouts formed a parade of death that would make even the bravest adventurer tremble. It was here he found them. His sister, Seraphina, and her team of holy priestesses were on the verge of collapse, cornered by a colossal golem. Their divine magic was spent, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. The massive stone fist of the golem rose high, ready to deliver the final, crushing blow. That's when a calm voice echoed through the cavern. Need some help? Seraphina spun around, her eyes widening in shock. Elion, what are you? Her words caught in her throat as she saw the macabre army standing obediently behind her youngest brother. A wave of horror washed over her. What? What is this? She screamed. Alion's expression was as cold as the grave. It's called survival, sister, he replied flatly. He raised a hand, pointing a single finger at the golem. Attack. In an instant, his 50 undead soldiers swarmed the stone giant. They scaled its massive body, hacking at its joints, their sheer numbers overwhelming it. Within minutes, the supposedly unbeatable boss crumbled into a pile of enchanted rubble. Seraphina and her team stared, speechless. The air was thick with disbelief and a dawning, terrible realization. You're a necromancer, she whispered, the words tasting like poison. Correct, Elion said, not even looking at her. But necromancy is forbidden. It's evil. How could you? He cut her off with a sharp, humorless laugh. Evil. I just saved your life with this evil power. Funny how that works, isn't it? He walked straight past her, his legion of the dead parting to let him through, and continued his descent into the dungeon's deeper levels, leaving his sister and her companions frozen in stunned silence. The same scene played out again and again. He found his brother Claude's team of elite rangers pinned down by a swarm of venomous demon spiders. With a wave of his hand, Elion summoned a tide of skeletal hands that burst from the ground, dragging the spiders into the earth. Claude could only watch, his pride warring with the undeniable fact that he'd just been saved by the family's outcast. Later, he came across his eldest brother, Marcus, the so-called Golden Knight, trapped with his paladins in a room pulsating with a debilitating curse. Elion simply walked in, the dark magic of the curse recoiling from his very presence, and dispelled it with a casual gesture. Each time, his siblings were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their weak, useless little brother now wielded a power far beyond their own. They owed their lives to the very magic their family, their church, and their entire society condemned as the ultimate evil. Finally, Elion reached the dungeon's heart, Takor room. This was it, the final chamber where the sacred treasure lay waiting. But it wasn't unguarded. A figure sat on a throne of bones, rising slowly as Elion entered. Its armor was caked in centuries of rust and dried blood, and the massive greatsword in its hand pulsed with a deadly, soul-chilling energy. A system warning blared in Elion's mind. Boss, they take the Death Knight. Level 50. Power level, extreme danger. This was a legendary undead warrior, a creature of nightmares sealed away ages ago. Any normal challenger, even a full team of heroes, would have fled in terror. But Elion simply smiled. A Death Knight. How ironic. Do you think you'd end up facing a necromancer? The Death Knight didn't respond with words. It charged. The speed was unreal, an earth-shattering blur of steel and bone. Its glowing sword swung down, aimed to cleave Elion in two, but with a deafening clang. The blow was stopped. Alian had blocked it, not with some flimsy shield, but with a sword he'd materialized from pure, compressed bone. The impact sent a shockwave through the room, cracking the stone floor beneath them. A furious duel erupted. The Death Knight was a master of combat, its movements refined by 500 years of unlife. It was faster, stronger, and more experienced. But Elian had the ultimate advantage. This was his domain. He wasn't just a warrior. He was a master fighting one of his own kind. He could feel the necrotic energy flowing through the night, could sense its very will. Mid-battle, as the knight lunged for a final strike, Elian's eyes glowed with immense power. He activated his ultimate ability, Domination of Death. He could take control of any undead creature, regardless of its power. Dark purple chains of pure mana erupted from his hands, shooting out and wrapping themselves around the legendary warrior. The Death Knight roared, a sound of fury and defiance as it struggled against the magical bindings. Its ancient, powerful will fought back ferociously against Elian's command. Submit, Elian roared, pouring every last drop of his mana into the skill. For a tense moment, nothing happened. The chains strained. The knight resisted. Then, slowly, the struggling ceased. The Death Knight's ethereal glow flickered, and it lowered its head. With a final, shuddering movement, it dropped to one knee before Alian, placing its massive sword on the ground in an ultimate act of submission. A new notification appeared. Congratulations. Legendary servant acquired. The Death Knight is now your permanent servant. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, the Colosseum was in a state of absolute pandemonium. The magical projection screens had shown everything. Every monster Elian single-handedly defeated, every soldier he added to his undead army, his shocking rescue of his siblings, and finally, his unbelievable subjugation of the legendary Death Knight. The crowd was a swirling vortex of confusion, fear, and awe. He's a necromancer. People screamed, but he's a luminous. From the Holy Family. Is this even possible? In the VIP box, Duke Aldrich, Elian's father, had collapsed into his chair. His face as pale as a ghost, his entire life's work, his carefully constructed reputation as the head of a pious and noble house, was utterly destroyed in a single afternoon, broadcast for the entire kingdom to see. Standing nearby, the Archbishop's face was a mask of pure fury. "Heresy!" he bellowed, his voice shaking with rage. "That boy is an abomination. He must be seized and executed immediately for this blasphemy." He turned to give the order, but before a word could escape his lips, a single hand was raised. It was King Theodore. "Wait," the king commanded. The entire stadium fell silent. The king's gaze was fixed on the projection screen. It showed Elian standing victorious in the dungeon core room, his new Death Knight servant kneeling before him, his army of the dead standing silently at attention. Despite the dark magic, despite the forbidden power, the boy didn't look evil. He looked noble, proud, strong. That boy, the king sighed, his voice thoughtful and carrying across the hushed arena, just completed a Ranka dungeon solo, a feat that even our most veteran adventurer teams struggle with. And through it all, he didn't harm a single innocent. In fact, he saved his siblings, despite how they've clearly treated him. The Archbishop sputtered. "But your majesty, the necromancy is..." "I know what necromancy is," the king interrupted, his tone sharp as steel. "I also know what desperation looks like. This boy was abandoned by his family, left for dead, and survived by awakening a power that society shuns. Yet, when given the chance, he chose to use that power to save the very people who scorned him. There is honor in that." The king rose to his full height, his royal authority radiating from him, absolute and unquestionable. "I hereby declare Elian Luminous the winner of this year's holy tournament." A wave of gasps rippled through the crowd. But the king wasn't finished, and the first grant him a full royal amnesty for his use of necromancy. Under one condition: that he agrees to use his unique and formidable powers in service to this kingdom. The announcement was a shockwave that rocked the very foundations of the nation. The first necromancer in history to be officially recognized, even celebrated, by the crown. Duke Aldrich looked like he wanted to die, but he couldn't utter a single word of protest. The king's word was law. Back in the quiet of the dungeon, oblivious to the chaos he had caused, Aelion received one final system notification. It wasn't from the dungeon, but from a source far, far greater. It was a royal decree, a new quest, a new path laid before him. His life as the outcast was over. His new life, as the kingdom's one and only royal necromancer, was just beginning. With the system notifications ringing in his ears, Leon finally emerged from the dungeon, his newly acquired undead army trailing silently behind him. The entire Colosseum fell silent. The massive crowd, which had just been roaring with excitement, potted like the sea, a mixture of fear and awe on every face. Whispers spread like wildfire through the stands. Some called him a monster, a fiend from the depths. Others, seeing that he had saved his siblings, despite their betrayal, whispered the word hero. Aelion ignored them all. His gaze was fixed on one spot, the royal box where his family stood. He walked with a newfound confidence, his tattered clothes a stark contrast to the immense power radiating from him as he approached. His siblings Claude, Serafina, and Marcus couldn't even meet his eyes. They flinched away, their earlier arrogance completely gone, replaced by shame and terror. His father, Duke Aldrich, looked like a man who had just lost everything. The architect of Aelion's suffering now looked utterly defeated, his face pale and his body trembling. Aelion stopped directly in front of his father. He didn't shout, but his voice was clear and carried across the silent arena, amplified by his mana so that every single person could hear his words. "You tried to have me killed," he began, his voice cold as the grave. "You and my dear siblings orchestrated my accident in that dungeon because you thought I was powerless, a stain on the family name." He paused, letting the weight of his accusation hang in the air. "Now, I have power beyond your wildest imagination. So tell me, Father ... go." Aelion leaned in slightly, his eyes glowing with a faint, chilling light. "Am I still a disappointment? What could Duke Aldrich say?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was checkmated. In that moment of suffocating silence, the king himself rose from his throne and descended into the arena. He walked past the stunned duke and placed a reassuring hand on Aelion's shoulder. The king's voice boomed with authority. "Aelion Luminos, you have proven not only your strength but also your character. From this day forward, you are relieved of your duties to the luminous household. You will serve directly under me as my royal necromancer. Use your gifts wisely, young prince." The title was unprecedented. A necromancer, serving the crown and a holy kingdom. At that, gasps rippled through the crowd. Aelion, showing the respect his own family had denied him, bowed his head deeply. "Yes, your majesty, I will serve you with all my strength." Days after the momentous tournament, Aelion's life changed completely. He moved out of the suffocating luminous estate and into a grand, solitary tower bestowed upon him by the king himself. It stood tall and imposing, a symbol of his new status. He was finally independent, respected, and feared in equal measure. At last, he was free from the oppressive shadow of a family that had only ever wished him harm. His reputation spread across the kingdom and beyond. The stories were fantastical, contradictory, and utterly captivating. Bards sang tales of the holy necromancer, the paradox who saved his treacherous siblings from certain death. Whispers in dark alleys spoke of the cursed prince, a man seemingly blessed by death itself. Courtiers marveled at the youngest royal servant in history, a teenager who held a position of power many nobles coveted their entire lives. People didn't know whether to praise him as a savior or fear him as an omen. So, in the end, they did both. One clear night, Aelion stood on the highest balcony of his new tower, gazing at the full moon hanging in the inky sky. The wind was cool, a welcome change from the stuffy dungeons he'd grown accustomed to. Behind him, as still as a statue, stood his most powerful creation, the Death Knight, his silent, eternal guardian. The city below was a tapestry of twinkling lights, but Elion felt a strange sense of isolation, a feeling that his journey was far from over. Suddenly, the shadows in the corner of the balcony seemed to deepen and coalesce. A figure emerged from the darkness, as if born from it. It was a woman of breathtaking, otherworldly beauty. She had long, flowing silver hair that seemed to capture the moonlight, and eyes the color of freshly spilled blood. She leaned against the railing, an alluring, knowing smile playing on her lips. "An impressive performance at the tournament," she said, her voice a melodic whisper that sent a shiver down Elian's spine. "You've caught the attention of certain influential organizations." Oleon didn't even turn around. He kept his eyes on the moon, his senses on high alert. "And you are?" he asked, his tone flat. "I'm someone who recognizes true potential when she sees it," the woman purred, pushing herself off the railing and taking a step closer. "The power you displayed. It was cute. A parlor trick. Tell me, Elian Luminous, how would you like to learn real necromancy?" Her crimson eyes gleamed with a fanatical light, the kind that can raise dragons from their ancient boneyards, command legions of thousands, a true army of the dead, the kind of power that can even challenge the gods of death themselves. Now, that got his attention. Helion finally turned to face her, his expression a mixture of suspicion and undeniable intrigue. "What's the catch?" he asked. There was always a catch. The woman's smile widened, showing a hint of sharp teeth. "Oh, just a small thing. You'll have to betray everything you once stood for. This kingdom, the holy church that despises you, even the kind king who took you under his wing. You see, a storm is coming, a war that's been brewing in the shadows for centuries, and you'll be forced to choose a side." Elian's brow furrowed. "What war?" "The eternal war," she said, her voice dropping to a dramatic whisper. "The war between the living and the dead." As if on cue, a loud clap of thunder echoed across the sky, despite the lack of clouds. At that exact moment, a new series of notifications blazed into existence before Elian's eyes. New quests unlocked. The Death War difficulty. SSS rank reward. Unknown failure. The end of all things. Elian's eyes widened as he stared at the impossible quest notification. An SSS rank quest? Failure meant the end of everything. He snapped his gaze back to the mysterious woman. "Who are you really?" he demanded. She gave him a deep, theatrical bow, a gesture full of ancient grace and mockery. "My name is I am the first necromancer, the one who was sealed away 1,000 years ago by the ancestors of your precious holy families." She rose, her crimson eyes locking onto his. "And you, dear boy, are my successor." Before Elion could even process her words, she dissolved into a swirl of dark smoke and shadows, vanishing as quickly as she had appeared. He was left alone on the balcony, the silence of the night now heavy with more questions than answers. He looked at the SSS rank quest floating in front of him, then up at the dark, unknowable sky, feeling the immense weight of a destiny he never asked for. He let out a short, humorless laugh. "The holy necromancer, huh?" he muttered to himself. "Something tells me this is just the beginning, and that is where we end today's recap. Can you believe that plot twist? The first necromancer, Morgana, is back, and she claims Elian is her successor. This Manhwa is absolutely insane, and I cannot wait to see what happens in the next chapters. What do you guys think will happen next? Will Ian stay loyal to the kingdom that finally accepted him, or will he join Morgana to unlock his true potential? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this recap, do you want to forget to smash that like button and subscribe to Manga Reaper for more epic manhwa content just like this, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also, I'm always looking for new series to cover, so let me know which manhwa you want me to recap next. I'm taking all your suggestions. Until next time, this is Manga Reaper where stories never die. Peace out.